Hello again and welcome back to my channel. It's the very end of September, I've realised. It's by the time this goes out, I think it will be the end of September. So what I need to do, I think, is my favourite books of the 3/4 point in the year. Is that a thing? That's what I want to do, I think. I need to take stock a little bit and think about what I've enjoyed spending my precious reading time with, because that's important, isn't it? How we choose to spend that time and not waste it. Really, I'm a big fan of not wasting time. I think it's bad when people set kind of ridiculous targets on themselves and put stress on themselves and stuff, but it is good not to mess about too much. Which is nonsense. I'm a great fan of messing about, but I do like seeing that I've spent some valuable time reading things that I've really liked and not wasted too much time on things that are dreadful. Having said that, I'm looking at some dreadful books that I've wasted time on this year. First thing to tell you is about Panda's autumn outfit, his red raincoat and beret. Our friend Lynn, who made his Pride dungarees for Levy Pride, all to the right sizes, has furnished him with an autumn outfit, which is the all the hit of all the rage on Facebook. We're so pleased. We've wanted a beret for Panda for a long time, and now he's got one. It reminded me as well, looking at pictures, that it's 3 years now since Panda's book of cartoons came out in September. September, the last few years, has meant a book of cartoons from me. They're over here, under a pile of things. I should show you. I think I have before. So, three years ago, was the Panda the Cat and the Dreadful Teddy, which was my book of lockdown cartoons, and it's filthy sweary cartoons from Panda that I love doing. I love doing this whole collection. Still smells wonderful. It smells like a Ladybird book in the 1970s because of the ink or the paper. I'm not sure. Anyway, this did really well at the time. Waterstones put it on their front desks and people bought it for Christmas presents, as they should. It was a really nice production job by HarperCollins, and the first time that I did a book of pictures, which seems amazing now. God, it seems such a long time ago suddenly. Yeah, and then the following year I did my Beatrix Potter parody, The Tale of Toxic Positivity, which was a complete parody on all those books about the countryside and rich people who can afford to go and live in fancy places in the countryside. And you know, there's terribly smug books, there's an awful lot of them. And I did it in this takeoff of Beatrix Potter. I'm not sure people were ready for me to be quite so sarcastic about Beatrix Potter. It's so rude. It's really rude. I love doing really filthy mouthed cartoons. That made me laugh. And then last year I did Puss in Books, which wasn't rude at all. It was literary quotes about cats and my paintings of cats belonging to friends. Everybody sent pictures of their cats, and there's Socky and there's Jamie's Ben, and God, this took some work. Yeah, that was lovely to do, and again, it smells wonderfully of colourful inks. All of these still available in the UK and the US and all around the world. Those are my cartoon books. Okay, so they make me feel autumnal. What also makes me feel autumnal is the last day of September. We always go to Alderley Edge in Cheshire, which is about, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes from here. It's the place that's always associated with Alan Garner and the Weird Stone of Brisingamen and his books of the 60s, his kids' books, fantasy novels about the wizard at Alderley Edge. And we've gone again and again over the years, but this trip has become an end of September ritual. And it began, again, 3 years ago in, no, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2021, 2, and 3. That's right, and this is the 4th year. And it's always to do with me beginning a new Doctor Who novel. And the first time, in 2021, I had to go because I wanted to be in Woodlands. And because I was about to start writing, The Return of Robin Hood. And I realised I'd been in this urban setting the whole of the summer. And so I needed to be in the trees and the woods. And so we climbed the steepest part of Alderley Edge by accident more than anything. And it set me in good stead to begin writing this the very next day, at the beginning of October, through till Christmas 2021. And then the following year, we went back because I like being a creature of habit in the way that cats are. And I was beginning Josephine and the Argonauts. And there's a bit of Woodlands in this when they find the dragon at the end of the world, as you can see on the cover, and the golden fleece. That's in the woods. And so that seemed like a good day out. And there used to be a nice deli in on the way to Alderley Edge, so we'd have lunch out as well. And we always seem to get really sunny, dry days. I'm not sure it's going to be like that this year. I'll look ahead to the weather, but I think Monday is actually quite wet. So that was 2 years ago, and I was beginning my Greek myths Doctor Who story. This is all from the, as I've said before, the Puffin Classics series, in which Doctor Who's of different eras crash land into out of copyright children's classics on the Puffin list. And I've done a number of these now. And last year, it was Doctor Who in Wonderland. And this came out this summer. So that's been my routine, writing these, beginning these, after a day trip to Alderley Edge and tramping through the woods and up the hills and looking out at the view. Coming home, and then in October, November, December, writing the new book. And then it comes out the following summer. And that's been my nice kind of routine and habit the last few years. And our plan is to go, if not Monday, if the weather's terrible, maybe Wednesday, because the weather looks a bit better then, but we're going to have our day out again in the middle of a very busy week. There's lots coming up this week with 3 different friends who are in bands doing gigs this week, and I think we're going to them all, beginning with the Irrepressibles on Sunday night, tomorrow night, and Jeremy's DJing tonight for the closing of the Witch Kings restaurant, which is really sad, around the corner from us. Our favourite bistro and bar, cafe bar, is closing after only a year open, and Jeremy's doing one of his DJ things there tonight. And next Saturday in Withington, I'm doing a reading for the Withington Book Festival, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Withington. If anybody's around in Manchester, do come and see me. I'm going to read from all sorts of things and talk about everything I've been up to in recent years, probably including some Doctor Who, some cartoon stuff, some talk about Elsie Mason probably, and some talk of this channel perhaps too, and doing bookish things generally. So it's looking quite busy, and I've got to start new projects next week and return to another project in a big way. I'm doing a next draft of my thriller, which I've talked about off and on through this year, The thriller is called Anything You Say, and my agent likes it and has suggestions, and I know what I'm doing. It's all fallen into place in my head, and I need to rewrite some of the middle, and that's what I'm going to be doing alongside, or maybe before I start this new thing. I'm sorry to be so vague about things. Eventually I'll be able to talk about everything I've got coming out, but this is just the way of it. I will allude to what's going on my desk, but not be explicit, perhaps. Anyway, I was making a list of what I've liked this year so far. I think I will do this now. My top 6, perhaps 6 or 7. I'm going to be quite harsh. I used to pick out about 20 at this point in the year, but I think I'm going to be quite choosy. And I think it will be things, I was thinking about this quite hard. I think it's best if I talk about the things that I enjoyed most of all, not necessarily the books I think that are the best. In some ways, and there's lots of different ways of doing this, isn't there? My favourite books of the year. These are the best books. So in that case, I'd be picking out things like James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room, which is a reread from years ago. I still think it's one of the best books I've read. Or Discovering the Glass Room by Simon Mower. Which I thought was a fantastic literary novel about post-war Germany, or kind of going into the war, and then Germany afterwards. Or Puffball by Faye Weldon, another one that I thought was smashing and brilliantly of its time, 1980, and a particular time in feminism, and something that is still hugely relevant today, especially in its kind of mysticism and pillorying of certain attitudes. So they're quality, and so is some of the science fiction I read. Things like Jack Finney's The Body Snatchers, which is, as I said before, still incredibly influential. However, they're not my favourites. I didn't enjoy them the most at the time. I was gobsmacked by them and enjoyed them, but I didn't have the best time of all with them, if that makes sense. So there's a distinction in my mind. Best or most enjoyable. Or the other thing that strikes me is that when you're making a list of books of your year or books of your 3/4 year, take the chance to elevate, I'm not sure I like that word, but push forward books that you think could do with a pushing forward compared with others. For example, I really enjoyed Catherine Rundell's Impossible Creatures. I think it was smashing. I will read the sequel and I will talk about it, but I'm not sure I'm going to put it in my favourites, actually. It was automatically in my favourites because I liked it so much. It went straight into this is really enjoyable, that pile. But everyone pushes this. Everyone talks about it. It was Waterstone's this, that and the other, and it's everywhere. Does it really need me? The small reach I have to go on about it? Or is that slot in my favourites better used for something that people maybe haven't heard so much about? So there's that to put onto it as well, onto my drawing up a list. We only have a certain amount of attention that we can garner, and only a certain amount of stuff that we can shove forward. And I think maybe having a top 10 of things that you would like to draw people's attention to should be thought about really carefully. And I think mentioning books that other people aren't mentioning, that you really liked, I think they have to be good, they have to be things you really enjoyed, and they have to be things that you want to push forward that other people aren't pushing forward. Those are the 3 things I feel I need to address when I do these lists now. I've thought about this for a long time over the years. And this is the first year I've had a YouTube channel where people are actually kind of watching to see what I'm pushing forward. I mean, it's, a relatively large number of people, and that's really lovely. And I do want to get it right. If I'm suggesting things, I want them to be the right things. So, having said all of that, really it should be 7.5 books, shouldn't it, for 3/4 of the year. I would choose 6A Blackstock Gardens, Jerry Potter, the Liverpool set memoir of a poet, a queer poet, who's writing about the 1960s and his family in this council housing block that's visceral and nostalgic and poetic. It's stuffed full of poetic prose. That's what it is. So, number 1. I'm going through in order, looking at the year on this shelf that you can't see. Find Me, Andre Aciman. Not an obscure novelist by any means, but I've not heard so many people talk about this spiritual sequel to Call Me By Your Name, and I really liked it. Oops, and now I'm throwing them on the floor. Watch out. Oh, that's my back. My back is a bit better. And Squeeze. The pop music played by James Griffiths, a rock biography, which I think he actually self-published. Orchard Abbott Books, and you can get it through Amazon. It's a really compendious, complete, wonderfully told story about this band from 78 to 82, this slice of wonderful pop history. I should have said that Jerry Potter's book, 6A Blackstock Gardens, is available from Flapjack Press, which is based in Manchester. Right, so that's 3. I think I'd shove forward The Principle of Moments by Esme Jacquini Pearson. Now, she has had a lot of pushing. She won a big award. She's been everywhere, and I think Galants have really pushed her, but I really like this, and I'm looking forward to the second. So if I've got to have a couple of things in this list that have been hyped, I will push forward this one on my own account because I liked it so much. So that's 4. And what else? Bernie Taupin I will have as well. Scattershot, his memoir, which I went on and about because it took ages to read, and I talked about Monoray, which is an imprint of Octopus Publishing, which I don't know. I love this. I should hate it for all sorts of reasons. It's a rich man's folly, like most of the things he's done. Galloping about on horses and buying islands or whatever he's done. But there's just something in the telling of it that is really, really engaging and fun. It's like a dying species, a dying world, really, of excess and silliness, and people who were kind of frivolous, really. That's what those rock stars were, weren't they? Banana Yoshimoto, Dead End Memories, Faber, championing my favourite Japanese novelist again, as they used to in the 90s. This was a small selection of very bittersweet, autumnal short stories. So it'd be nice if I had one of each kind of thing I like. A kind of literary novel, a literary memoir to do with class, a rock biography, a big walking science fiction book, literary short stories, another rock and roll book, but a memoir this time. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 7th would have to be Slow Dance, Rainbow Roll. How interesting. A novel that I read this month that I really didn't like at first. I thought it was just straight people being wet and boring. And, you know, weddings and disappointed people in their 30s and people with kids and people without kids, and looking back to high school and all these kind of, almost kind of like afternoon TV movie stuff. But there's something about this. There's something about her writing that I really like. And because they're people of my age and my generation, there's a field of reference and an attitude that is very familiar. And that is something I do find exasperating, I think, in its kind of familiarity. But I would, I'd recommend it. I'd recommend sticking with it as well. Big lesson for me this September. Those books that you feel tempted to chuck, but you don't, and you stick with, and you end up loving. And the importance of that, just as important as knowing when to actually chuck things, because you're not liking them so much. And I think that's it. Possibly, if I had to have another, Sweet Home Alaska by Carol Estepy Dag, which would be the only kids book on the list. And I've read a lot of kids books this year and young adult, as I always do. So it seems right that I should have one in the list. And this one is terrific. It's atmospheric, it's nostalgic, and it's nostalgic for the reading we did as well when we were kids. The Little House on the Prairie and those kind of classic American memoirs of pioneers. So that makes 8. Probably too many, because I'm bound to find more than 2 more favourites this year in the 3 months remaining. But I will take this, as a provisional list of favourites for 3/4 of the year. And it's kind of heartbreaking to leave out things I've loved as well, like The Little Penguin Bookshop by Joanna Toy, or The Girl on the 88 Bus by Freya Sampson, or The Surreal Life of Leonora Carrington by Joanna Moorhead, or Adam Neville's Last Days. But that's the way it goes. I'm looking at Mary Lou's Batman novel as well, but never mind. And some of the rereads. I think rereads kind of automatically disqualify themselves from favourites of the year because they belong to other years. So then rereading things like the 3 Helene Hanff books I read, again, they can't go forward. Neither can James Baldwin. I've got really tough rules on this, but you can tell that I've thought about this for a long time. It's a fine art. Anything worth doing is worth doing well and treating like a fine art. And this is about the fine art of reading. That's what it's about. And making the most of it. Right, I've gone over time, and I think I heard a knock at the door, and I think that's a parcel for me. Which would be the new Lev Grossman King Arthur novel, which I ordered the other day as a treat for myself. Okay, goodbye. I'll see you again soon in the next episode. Goodbye.